Black Friday has started on Boosty. Up to 60% discount on subscription levels. Hurry up to buy at such a great price. You can watch exclusive videos of Naruto Lemon. Link in the description. Enjoy watching everyone. Description: for the invention of the technique, Edo Tensei Shinigami decided to punish Tobirama Senju. However, his older brother, Hashirama, took all the blame and punishment on himself. Now he must return to the world of the living and take care of the Uzumaki Naruto, who is his grandniece. How will the girl's life turn out if she is raised by the first Hokage? And then Mokuton awakened. Chapter 20: Battle with Orochimaru. Sasuke suddenly thrust the kunai into his hand. Blood flowed along the tree branch. It was painful, but Uchiha achieved what he wanted. He came out of the illusion of his own death. Activating the Sharingan, the boy grabbed Sakura and jumped away from his opponent. To defeat fear with pain. Very clever, Sasuke-kun. You are not that simple, the girl smiled. Uchiha clenched his teeth. He was shaking, and his body was frozen with icy fear. He was afraid. Terribly afraid. He had not been so afraid even when Itachi destroyed an entire clan. Sasuke-kun, Sakura whispered. However, Uchiha covered her mouth, not letting her speak. The last thing she needed was for that grass kunoichi to find them. Haruno resisted. When she was barely able to unhook the brunette's hand, she made him turn around. There was a huge snake behind him. They both jumped back in different directions. The animal followed them. Don't come near me! Sasuke shouted. 6 shurikens flew at the reptile. Suddenly the snake's skin began to crack and that same kunoichi crawled out of there. I sense your fear. The victim must always be on guard when a predator is nearby. The girl laughed and licked her lips again. Suddenly shurikens flew at her. Looking up, she saw Uzumaki standing proudly on a tree branch. The girl narrowed her eyes and carefully examined the kunoichi. She looked like all ordinary people, pale skin, thin eyebrows, dark eyes, an elongated face. But there was something creepy, inhuman about her. But what? Who are you really? Uzumaki asked. What do you mean? The kunoichi frowned. Your chakra reserve is much greater than that of an ordinary genin, the girl explained. Well, then I don't need to hide anymore. She smiled bloodthirstily. The girl's skin, like a mask, began to tear and peel off. Small pieces of skin fell to the ground. And now another person was standing in front of the genin. His face was unnaturally pale, his golden eyes were outlined in purple circles. His dark hair was slightly shorter than Hashirama's. My name is Orochimaru. And who are you? The man hissed like a snake. Uzumaki. Naruto. The girl answered. Why are you here? I need Sasuke-kun. Orochimaru grinned bloodthirstily. You won't get him. Haim shook her head. We'll see. The snake pulled meaningfully. Suddenly, his neck lengthened, like a snake's. Orochimaru's head flew towards the Uchiha at great speed, when suddenly his neck, not far from his chin, was intercepted and thrown to the side. In order not to hit himself, the Sannin had to return his neck to its normal size. Sasuke and Sakura looked at their teammate in surprise. Her right hand turned into several wooden blocks. And then they turned back into an ordinary hand. Would release? How interesting. Orochimaru hissed. All my previous experiments with this element failed and, unfortunately, no one survived. But where did you get Mokuton from? I got it from my great-grandfather's brother, Uzumaki shrugged. And now, Mokuton. Underground root technique. She said. 1,000 huge, strong and long tree roots appeared from under the ground. Having tied up Orochimaru, one of the roots suddenly pierced him through. Blood gushed onto the ground. The snake's mouth opened. Naruto tensed it open too wide. Suddenly, 2 hands crawled out of the man's throat, widening the mouth opening. Soon, out came a living and unharmed Sannin. Uzumaki involuntarily took a step back. This is definitely not a person. Damn it! The girl hissed, forming the monkey seal. Doton. Swampy swamp. The ground under the man's feet turned into a swamp, which did not allow the Sannin to move. Doton. Stone bullets. Several rocks flew out of Naruto's mouth, which grew larger as they approached the Sannin. Having formed the snake seal, Naruto put her palm to the ground and it began to break into large pieces, which flew sharply towards Orochimaru. Futon. Great breath, the man said. A huge gust of wind blew away all the rocks thrown by Naruto. Orochimaru formed another seal, and the wind turned into an avalanche of fire. Suetun. Water tornado, said Uzumaki. A small tornado of water formed around her. Strengthening the flow of chakra, the girl increased the size of the technique and threw herself straight into the fire. A characteristic hissing sound was heard and steam rose into the air. Concentrating, the girl pounced on Orochimaru in this form, pressing him to the ground. Raitun. Thunder bomb. A powerful electric charge hit the water. Electricity pierced Orochimaru's body. He twitched and crawled into several snakes. Uzumaki's eyes widened in surprise. What? It was just a clone made of snakes. The water tornado technique disappeared. Suddenly, pain pierced Uzumaki's side and she flew back, hitting her head painfully on a tree trunk. Naruto! Sakura shouted. And now you, Sasuke-kun, the snake Sannin grinned and shot a stream of flame at the boy, simultaneously stretching his neck. Sasuke dodged the snake's teeth and the stream of flame, then threw a kunai. The man dodged, and the two clashed in hand-to-hand combat. Having blocked all of Orochimaru's blows, the Uchiha bounced off the Sannin, who began to circle the field. Sasuke looked at the man carefully, trying to find out from which side he would attack. Having successfully blocked the blow, the Uchiha counterattacked with flames. A fiery whirlwind covered the shinobi with his head, but he was able to dispel it, and, sliding along the trunk, almost grabbed the boy by the leg. The brunette jumped back, and the man had to dodge the explosive seals left behind. Sasuke threw 3 kunai, clamped between his fingers, with one hand. While the enemy was dodging, he pulled out several shuriken, attached threads to them and threw. Shadow Mill worked, tightly tying the man to the trunk with a fishing line. He only grinned. I liked our game, Sasuke-kun. You are capable of surpassing even your brother. The shinobi's neck lengthened again, like a snake. His head instantly appeared next to Sasuke, and the man bit him on the shoulder. Black tomo appeared on Uchiha's skin. The boy bent over from intense and burning pain. One day you will come to me for strength to defeat Itachi. The Sannin hissed and disappeared. Sasuke fell to the ground and lost consciousness from the pain. Sakura jumped up to him and turned him over on his back. Looking at her teammate's face, she frantically tried to remember what to do. Sakura! Naruto said and fell unconscious. The blow to her head on the tree trunk was too strong. Chapter 21 End of the second stage. Naruto came to her senses only the next day. Her head ached terribly. Making a painful sound, the girl sat up and looked around. She was in some kind of depression in the ground. Roots hung over the entrance, preventing the sun from squeezing inside. Turning her head, Naruto saw Sasuke lying next to her. The rag on his head was wet and cool. So, Haruno had recently been here. Touching the back of her aching head, Uzumaki felt bandages under her fingers. Getting up on the second try, the girl saw that she had been sleeping on the leaves all this time. Staggering, she got out but, not noticing a stone, tripped over it and sprawled on the ground. Having cleared her throat, Haim slowly sat up, examining the area. They were not far from some kind of clearing. There were bushes with wild blackberries all around. A stream was babbling nearby. After looking at the shelter, Uzumaki was convinced that she was sleeping in a hollow under the roots of a tree. Yes. Sakura found a good place. As they say, remember the sun and here comes a ray. Naruto! Haruno exclaimed, running up to Uzumaki. Good morning, the girl whispered. She was terribly thirsty. The pink-haired girl, as if reading Uzumaki's thoughts, handed her water in a small wooden cup. Apparently, Haruno found it in one of Naruto's scrolls. Having quickly drunk everything, the blue-eyed girl sighed with relief. It became easier to breathe. "Thank you," said Uzumaki, handing her teammate a cup. "For what?" Sakura was surprised. "For everything," answered Naruto. "For dragging us here. For bandaging the wounds. For providing first aid. For helping us." "Oh, come on!" Haruno was embarrassed. You should become a medic," the blonde said. "You will make a good medic nin." "No! Being a medic nin is not for me," Sakura waved her off. "It would be better if I, like you and Sasuke, would be a fighting force." "Sakura," said Naruto. "You are weaker than us, but you have better chakra control. Moreover, if you become a medic nin, then you will strengthen our team. While Sasuke and I fight, you will heal us and we will become one of the best teams." "But all medic nin are weak," Haruno objected. "Why is that?" Uzumaki raised an eyebrow. "You know Tsunade Senju? She's the granddaughter of the first Hokage and the best medic nin. She can shatter the earth with one punch." "I still don't want to." Sakura turned away. Okay. I get it." Naruto raised her hands in a conciliatory manner. "I think I'll go take a bath, otherwise I'm all dirty and covered in blood." "Good luck." Uzumaki nodded and went towards the stream. Going downstream, the girl reached the place where the stream flows into the river. Having put up a protective barrier, she undressed and plunged into the water, feeling the refreshing coolness. After basking in the water for a while, Haim pulled off the bandages and touched the already hardened scar thanks to the chakra kurama. Having thoroughly washed her hair from dust, dirt, blood, leaves and twigs, Uzumaki changed into clean clothes from the scroll, and began to wash the dirty ones. Having finished all her chores, the girl removed the barrier. Walking up the stream, the girl almost reached the place of their halt, when suddenly she heard someone's voices. Coming closer, she saw how Sasuke, enveloped in black terrifying chakra, was breaking the arms of the screaming boy from sound. "We got into something again," commented Kurama. "So it was us," the girl shrugged. Approaching the Uchiha, Naruto abruptly intercepted his hands. Sasuke looked at her with displeasure. His eyes blazed with anger and hatred. Hugging him, the girl whispered 3 words: "Calm down. Everything is fine." Sasuke nodded and walked away from the sound guy. Sitting down next to the wounded man, she rummaged through his pouch and pulled out the earth scroll. Then the girl looked at the clearing. 2 more sound men were lying exhausted. Not far from the resting place, a trembling Sakura was sitting, all dirty and wounded. Tears were running down her cheeks, and her once luxurious hair was cut short. Uzumaki took out a kunai and approached Sakura. "Let me help you." Haruno, she nodded, and Haim, standing behind her teammate, began to do her hair, cutting off excess hair. Small strands of pink hair fell to the ground. When she finished, the blue-eyed girl looked around again. Suddenly, something green made a painful sound. Turning around, Uzumaki saw Lee. He was lying on the ground and holding his wounded hand. Smiling at her friend, the girl went up to him and quickly bandaged the wound. Rock looked at her gratefully, and, saying goodbye to everyone, rushed to Tenten and Niji. Looking at her teammates, the blonde sighed with displeasure. "Sasuke," called Naruto, "go to the stream and wash yourself, otherwise I can't stand looking at your sour face." Uchiha nodded and went to wash himself. After his return, Naruto sent Haruno to wash and gave her a scroll with spare clothes. True, these were Naruto's civilian clothes, but oh well. They got the scrolls and now they just need to get to the tower. Uzumaki will protect them with a protective barrier, so they can walk around in civilian clothes. When, an hour later, everyone was ready and all their things were packed, Team Number 7 set out on the road to the tower. Naruto protected them with a protective barrier, and they did not meet a single genin on the way here. Thanks to the fuinjutsu of the Uzumaki clan, they reached the huge tower with several floors in the evening. It was already getting dark when the large doors opened and Team 7 went inside. Having looked around carefully, the guys saw a large poster on the wall. Having read this strange riddle, all three began to think. There was clearly a missing word. Having finally solved the riddle, the teammates opened the scrolls as the riddle said. Irika appeared from the scroll and solemnly announced, "Congratulations. You passed." Chapter 22 The preliminary battles begin. The Hokage said slowly and, looking around at the silent participants, continued. But before that, there is one thing I would like to tell you. About the true goals of the exam. True goals? Confused cries were heard. Yes. The true goal of the exam is not just to become a chunin, but also to unite the allied countries. Neighboring countries have fought with each other more than once. In order to avoid wasting military forces, the feudal lords and kage of the villages decided to create the chunin exam, or chunin shuriken. You genin fight each other, representing the strength of your village. And your victories are something like a mini-war of the allied countries. An excited whisper went through the hall. The third waited until the hum died down. Only those worthy of the title of chunin take this exam, and here you fight for your village. But why did you say that this should improve relations? Sakura asked, puzzled. I told you at the beginning, do not misunderstand. The custom of life and death fights maintains balance, the Hokage calmly said and, looking at the genin with an understanding look, finished his speech with the words, "This is good relations in the ninja world. This mortal battle is your dream and the honor of the village." I don't care. Gaara's cold, emotionless voice was heard. Tell us the details of this life or death exam. I will begin the explanation of the third stage, but, the Hokage began, looking at him carefully, but he was interrupted by a jonin who appeared in a cloud of smoke. Excuse me, Hokage-sama, the jonin said. I, Gekko, hate the judge. I will explain everything. Please, the Hokage nodded, handing the floor to the newcomer. Nice to meet you. Until the third stage, everyone. I want you to do something, the judge coughed. Preliminary fights to advance to the main fights of the third stage. Preliminary fights? What does that mean? Ino exclaimed indignantly. Why can't we start the third stage with all the remaining participants? Kiba asked. The thing is, too many participants have passed. Hate began to answer the questions. According to the rules, we must reduce the number of participants before the third stage. As Hokage-sama mentioned, there will be a lot of guests at the third stage, so, the judge, breaking off in mid-sentence, began to cough again. After clearing his throat, he continued, we cannot hold many fights. We are also limited by time. Those who are not feeling well, Sensei's speech was interrupted by a cough again. Are you okay? Someone asked in an agitated voice. It seems that you are the only one who is not feeling well here, Sensei, Naruto muttered, looking attentively at the examiner. Excuse me, the judge said, clearing his throat. If you want to leave after the explanation, please let me know. The preliminary fights will begin immediately. Immediately? A confused voice was heard. But we just finished the second round, I forgot to mention, but you will have one-on-one fights, to elimination. If someone from the team wants to leave, the whole team will not be kicked out. Only him, the examiner said, openly ignoring the indignation of the participants. Silence fell. Everyone was thinking about the words of the Hokage and hate. Sakura, standing in front of Naruto, had already turned to her teammates and wanted to say something. Before Haruno could take a breath, Sasuke touched her shoulder with his hand and looked the girl in the eyes. No need. He shook his head. But Haruno wanted to object. No need, the Uchiha repeated. Sakura just sighed and turned away. She wanted to tell the examiners everything, but she couldn't. Sasuke believed in her. Moreover, if she told the Hokage about this, then it would look like a betrayal. I want to leave. The same ash-haired guy who was attacked before the first stage suddenly said. I've used up too much chakra and I'm tired. I can't fight. With these words, the medic walked around his team and went out the door. Whatever he said, Naruto clearly saw that he was lying. The guy looked quite healthy without serious injuries, just a couple of scratches. And his chakra reserves were full. Suspicious. The examiner only nodded and, after waiting a couple more minutes, asked the genin again if they wanted to leave. Receiving confident looks in response, Haight announced the start of the qualifying fights. Good. Very good, muttered Gecko and coughed. The participants will be selected using an electronic scoreboard. He pointed to the wall where this very scoreboard was hanging. A moment, and Uchiha appeared on it. Sasuke vs. Akato Yoroi. Excellent! Sasuke and Akato remain here, and the rest of you, I ask you to go up to the balconies to watch the fight from there. After the fight was announced, Sasuke instantly activated the Sharingan with two Tomo, and his opponent only got into a comfortable position. Akato sharply threw at the Uchiha kunai, but missed, as the Sharingan bearer took a step to the side, and the weapon flew past his ear. Sharply approaching Yoroi, Uchiha punched him in the chin and immediately felt how chakra began to be sucked out of his body, and Akato's body flew to the wall. However, the enemy quickly rose to his feet after the blow with concrete and ran at Uchiha in a frontal attack. The boy dodged the blow and made a sharp undercut. But before the enemy had time to fall, Sasuke hit him with all his might in the jaw, from which he flew to the ceiling. The dark-haired man created 3 clones. Suddenly his body was pierced by terrible pain. Grabbing the seal that Orochimaru had placed, Uchiha felt how it pulsated madly, and strength and pain spread through the guy's veins. Sasuke growled and suppressed the seal with willpower, then continued to attack. The first clone jumped into the air and with a powerful kick to the back, made Yoroi fly even higher. The second and third clones pushed the original, so that he jumped above the enemy and kicked him in the stomach with all his might. Akato flew down and broke the floor. Sasuke weakened and fell into the arena after Yoroi. Barely standing on his feet, he bent over Akato's body. The boy from Konoha was lying unconscious on the sand. The fight is over. The winner is Uchiha. Sasuke, Gecko announced. The medics quickly carried away Yoroi's body, and the Uchiha himself went up to the balcony. Smiling at her friend, Naruto glanced at the board, where Aburame appeared. Shino vs. Abumi Zaku. The above-mentioned genin jumped onto the arena and prepared for battle. Zaku seemed to be a rather familiar person to Naruto. Taking a closer look, she realized that this Abumi was the same guy whose arms Sasuke had broken. The fight was not very long, about 10 minutes, but spectacular. Aburame attacked his opponent with chakra-sucking beetles. Zaku dodged the insects for a long time, and at the end of the fight he pulled out his trump card, both hands, which turned out to be whole and unharmed. Using the holes in his palms, he began to attack Shino, but the Konoha man was much quicker. Having plugged these holes, he began to wait for Zaku to use them. And the result was achieved. Abumi lost. His chakra exploded inside his hands, causing terrible pain. Having said a couple of incomprehensible phrases at the end, Shino adjusted his glasses. Winner, Aburame Shino. Next fight, Sabaku no Temari vs. Takahashi Tenten. Gecko announced and coughed. Chapter 23 One-on-One Battles. The sign appeared on the board. Dog no Temari vs. Takahashi Tenten. Both kunoichi jumped from the stands and prepared for battle. The battle began with elementary kunai, which Tenten threw at her opponent. However, they were repelled and Sabaku no grinned. Temari warned the girl that she was giving her 3 minutes, and when all 3 purple moons open on her fan, she would attack. Takahashi began to show masterful skill in handling cold weapons. However, all attacks were useless. Sabaku no had the element of wind and the girl easily repelled all the iron. When all 3 moons opened, Temari began to attack. She hit mercilessly and seemed to want to kill her opponent. With her last strength, Tenten used Double Rising Dragon. However, like all previous attacks, this one was repelled. Takahashi was hit by another stream of wind, which inflicted small wounds on her body. The girl fell down with a cry of pain. Uzumaki gripped the handrail very tightly out of excitement and anxiety. Winner, Dog no Temari. Tenny was carried away by the medics, and Temari returned to her place. Next fight, Tsurugo. Misumi vs. Sabaku no Kankuro. Haight announced, and the two jumped into the arena. The fight was short and uninteresting. Misumi wrapped his body around the guy with the painted face and squeezed him tighter and tighter. Gecko was about to stop the fight, when suddenly a wooden puppet appeared in place of Sabaka no, and Kankuro himself climbed out of the bandages that were tied around his puppet, or rather, himself. The guy in black clothes, climbing out of the bandages, moved his fingers and the puppet itself wrapped around Tsurugo. Winner Sabaka no Kankuro. Next fight, Haruno Sakura vs Yamanaka. Ino. Hate announced when Kankuro returned to the balcony and Misumi was carried away by medics. Sakura and Ino jumped into the arena and raised their hands, showing that they were ready to fight. Hate gave the signal to start the fight, and the girls rushed at each other. The fight lasted tediously and for a long time. Both girls loudly divided Uchiha, who, by the way, was taken somewhere by Kakashi. As a result, Ino cut off her hair and scattered it around the arena. Sakura fell into this trap, but thanks to her inner eye, she tore Yamanaka out of her subconscious. Simultaneously attacking each other with their fists, they flew back several meters and were unable to get up, left without strength. Draw. Gecko coughed. Next fight, Naruto Shikamaru vs Kintsuchi. In the fight, Shikamaru proved that he is a genius, but lazy. Having subdued the girl with the help of a shadow, he deftly calculated all the moves in his mind and fired a kunai. Moreover, he dodged it, but Kin crashed her head into the wall. Winner, Nara Shikamaru. Next fight, Inuzuka Kiba vs Uzumaki Naruto. The girl and the boy jumped into the arena. I don't want to fight a girl. Inuzuka chuckled. Are you afraid to lose? Naruto raised an eyebrow. Oh no! Kiba answered. Hate gave the signal to start the fight. Both opponents rushed at each other. Kiba turned Akamaru's dog into an exact copy of himself. Together they attacked Uzumaki, turning into mini drills. However, the girl deftly dodged their attacks. Because of the dust, she did not see her opponents, but she felt their chakra perfectly. Jumping back from another mini whirlwind in Akamaru's face, or rather, in his muzzle. Turning around sharply, she realized that she would not have time to hide from Kiba's blow. Quickly creating a stone shield, she clenched her fists. The stone would not help against this guy. Then, for the sake of an experiment, she imbued the stone with lightning chakra. The stone began to change and turned into iron. Real iron. Kiba crashed into the iron barrier with great speed and, making a painful sound, fell onto the arena. Akamaru transformed into himself and ran up to his master. Kiba crouched down, rubbing the bump on his forehead. Jumping up to the boy, Uzumaki created a swamp under him, in which he drowned. Akamaru, who had been growling angrily before, was now whining and trying to swim out of the swamp. When only the heads of the opponents remained on the surface, Hate loudly announced, Winner, Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto nodded and, having cleaned up the swamp, went upstairs. Lee gave her a thumbs up, and Niji smiled. Guy shouted to the whole hall about the power of youth. Hyuga, Takahashi, Hataki and Uzumaki pretended not to know this psycho. The scoreboard showed Hyuga Niji vs Hyuga Hinata. Naruto sighed. The fight between two members of the Hyuga clan is a rather unusual and interesting fight. Byakugan fought against Byakugan. In general, the outcome of the fight was clear. Niji was stronger and more experienced than Hinata. As a result, the girl was carried away on a stretcher with severe injuries. Next, Kinyuta Dosu and Akimichi fought Choji. There is no point in describing the fight. Choji, who was enthusiastic at the very beginning, lost it during the fight. Dosu used some technique based on sound, and Choji lost. Gaara and Rock Lee fought last. As a result, the latter was hospitalized. Lee was the first to break through Sabaka's sand defense and almost defeated him, but at the decisive second, opening several gates from a forbidden technique and using Lotus had an effect. In the last minutes, Gaara brutally beat Lee, breaking his arm and leg. All this was stopped by Guy, who could not watch his student suffer. Naruto also wanted to rush to him, but Kakashi held the girl back. After that, Hate Gecko spent about an hour praising and threatening the genin who had passed the qualifying fights. When it came down to it, they were told to draw pieces of paper with numbers on them. The girl got the third number. When everyone finally got their pieces of paper, Hate asked the guys to announce their numbers. Excellent. Gecko coughed. It's time to announce the first final fights. First fight, Sabaka no Gaara vs Uchiha Sasuke. Second fight, Uzumaki Naruto vs Hyuga Neji. Third fight, Aburame Shino vs Sabaka no Kankuro. Fourth match, Nara Shikamura vs Sabaka no Temari. Kinyuta Dosu will fight the winner of the fourth match. After the fights were announced, Hate once again began praising the genin and advising them to train hard, since they only have a month. Chapter 24 Never Insult Time. Naruto and Sakura were sitting in a small place where they served fried meat. Having chosen the quietest place, the girls ordered food and began to wait. The test in the Forest of Death, like the preliminary fights, ended yesterday. And today the girls decided to rest and celebrate the passage of the second stage. Actually, they were supposed to come here together with the team, but Sasuke was in the hospital, and Kakashi got lost on the road of life again. Therefore, the teammates did not wait for him and went to eat. "I'm so hungry," said Uzumaki. "I haven't eaten since morning. I was running around the hospital." The thing is that in the morning Naruto decided to visit her friends who were in the hospital after the fights. Tenten had already come to her senses and was quickly recovering. Sasuke was lying unconscious, and a breathing tube was connected to his mouth. But Lee's condition worsened during the night. He began to have a fever. The doctors gave him a painkiller, a sedative, all the necessary medications and a sleeping pill. However, the fever did not go down during the night. "But I visited everyone," smiled Sakura. "And I wanted to go to Sasuke-kun after dinner." Finally, they brought the meat and sauce. Having picked up the tasty pieces, Naruto put them on the mini-grill. Soon there was a sizzling sound and the smell of juicy fried meat. Uzumaki grabbed a piece and, dipping it in the sauce, stuffed it into her mouth, chewing everything. Sakura winced. It did not look very nice. The pink-haired girl herself elegantly took a piece of meat and put it on a special plate. Having poured sauce on top, she lifted the plate and, picking up the dinner with chopsticks, carefully put it into her open mouth. "Why are you so fussing with this etiquette?" asked Uzumaki, who, in turn, had already eaten about 10 juicy pieces. "A girl should always be elegant," answered Haruno. "Well, you know, in a fight, elegance is the last thing you should think about. At least so that you don't get hurt. But now is not a fight." Sakura was indignant. "By the way, you should also follow the rules of etiquette." "Although, what am I talking about?" "You don't know anything," Sakura laughed at her own stupid joke. "What are you hinting at?" Uzumaki narrowed her eyes. "The meat was forgotten." "Well, you grew up without parents and don't know the basic rules of behavior in society," shrugged Haruno. "You were accepted into the Uzumaki clan, right? I saw those Uzumaki, they all had red hair, and you have blonde. So it's no wonder that someone like you doesn't know etiquette." "Someone like me?" Naruto got angry. "Are you saying that I'm a stupid, uneducated idiot, unworthy of being in your company? Do you think that I'm a street ragamuffin who the Uzumaki took in out of the kindness of my heart?" "No, what are you saying?" "I meant something completely different." Sakura waved her hands. "Don't lie." Naruto snapped at her. "That's what you think of me, right?" The girl's gaze seemed to penetrate her very soul. Haruno had no choice but to nod in agreement. She really thought so. "I see." Uzumaki left the table. "You finish eating, and I just remembered something important." Naruto left the establishment and headed straight to the Hokage. After talking with him and receiving permission, Uzumaki contacted Zabuza using a special seal. Kankei, mentally telling him to take a kimono with him for official clan meetings. Jiro told her about this seal. It was placed on any person and helped to contact him. It was somewhat reminiscent of the Anbu seal, but Kankei helped not only to summon, but also to talk to him mentally. A very convenient thing! Momochi appeared 5 minutes later and gave Uzumaki a package with her kimono. The girl took it and they both went around Konoha. Zabuza did not ask Naruto why he was there. Because if she summoned him, it meant that the girl would be in danger at this time and would brightly wear the title of Haim. When the two approached a small 2-story house, Uzumaki ran off somewhere, and returned already changed. Having knocked on the wooden door, she began to wait. The door was opened by a woman in her 40s with short blonde hair. "My name is Uzumaki. Naruto." The girl bowed. The woman did the same. "I'm Mabuki. Haruno, Sakura's mother." She introduced herself. "Are you probably here to see my daughter? I'll call her now." No. Uzumaki shook her head. "I'm here to see you and your husband." "Is he home?" "Yes." Mabuki nodded. "Let's go to the living room." Haruno led the girl and Zabuza into a cozy, bright room where Sakura's father was already sitting. He had spiky pink hair and a mustache of the same color. "This is my husband, Kizashi. Nice to meet you. I'm Uzumaki." "Naruto." The girl bowed again. "And this is my bodyguard. His name is Momochi." "Zabuza." "I came about the Hokage's order and my personal dissatisfaction. Do you know that your daughter is a terribly ill-mannered person? She always says whatever comes into her head. I am extremely unhappy with the way you raised her. She is insolent and rude to everyone. She is the weakest in our team and, moreover, a burden. I offered her a rational option to become a medic-nin, but she thinks that she is ready to go into the security forces. Although she fought to a draw with Ino in the preliminaries." "What? You're kidding!" Mabuki exclaimed. "My daughter is an extremely well-mannered girl. She couldn't behave like that." "What a pity to shatter your dreams," Naruto pursed her lips. "Today she insulted me. I hope you know what happens to those who dare to insult the Haim of the great clan?" Naruto asked sternly. "No," Kizashi shook his head, nervously clenching his hands into fists. "From now on, her life belongs to me. I can do whatever I want with her. But I decided not to become a sadist and ask your permission. Since you can't raise your daughter properly, then I will." The girl finished abruptly. Suddenly, some kind of rumble was heard on the stairs. Turning around, all four saw Sakura. The girl went up to her mother and looked at her point blank, then at her father, and then at Naruto and Momochi. "Mom, what is she doing here?" Sakura asked, pointing a finger at her teammate. "I came too," Uzumaki began. "No one asked you, ragamuffin," the pink-haired girl snorted contemptuously. Mabuki and Kizashi looked at their daughter in horror. Could everything that Haim said be true? We agreed to your proposal, Naruko-sama," the woman said. "Excellent," Uzumaki smiled, standing up. "I will need a month. I will wait for Sakura tomorrow near the academy. Let her take only personal hygiene items, pajamas and home clothes. Oh yes! And some sandals. Let her leave the shinobi sandals at home. Until next time." Naruto stood up and left the living room. Zabuza opened the door and let the girl go first. Chapter 25: Sakura's New Life. Exactly at noon, Sakura stood next to the academy. She had a small backpack on her shoulders. Looking around again, she snorted irritably. This Naruto was nowhere to be found. And Uzumaki herself called her, and now she was late. And then Haruno thought. Why did her teammate come to her yesterday? And what did Sakura's parents agree to? "Hello?" Naruto smiled, interrupting the pink-haired girl's thoughts. "Sorry I'm late." Pfft. Sakura snorted contemptuously. "Let's go," Uzumaki called. "Where to?" Haruno asked, but the blue-eyed girl remained silent in response. They walked for a long time. A very long time. And no wonder! Uzumaki lives on the outskirts of the village, and they are walking practically from the center. All this time Sakura tried to remember the way, but it was useless. They were winding along some streets, turning somewhere all the time, so soon Haruno gave up on this matter. But Naruto specially led her teammate along all these alleys so that she could not remember the way back and did not run away, because you never know. In the end, the two reached a small forest area. Uzumaki folded the seal and the previously invisible barrier became bluish-white. A passage similar to an arch opened in it. The girl nodded to Haruno to go through. Sakura took a cautious step into the barrier and, instead of an impassable thicket, there were small 3-story houses. The gardens in front of them were well-groomed, and on the sides of the stone path there were flowering trees. The pink-haired girl was stunned. How beautiful! Suddenly, the arch behind her tightened, and Naruto walked straight into the barrier with an unperturbed look. "Follow me," said Uzumaki. Sakura obediently followed Naruto. In general, the pink-haired girl wanted to ask her about everything. But something did not allow her to do this. For some reason, she followed her teammate, not daring to resist. Finally, both girls reached a large mansion standing at the end of the road. Approaching the door, Uzumaki opened it and entered the hall. Sakura's mouth was slightly open in admiration. The hall was large and combined with a terrace. There were shoes on the threshold, and a table in the middle of the room. Next to the table was a sofa. On the floor lay a soft carpet. Naruto walked further. Having climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, she hit a small gong standing on a table next to the railing with a hammer. A girl with short brown hair immediately came running. "Change her," Uzumaki nodded at Sakura, "into the kimono I prepared. In 5 minutes I'll be waiting for her at the entrance." The girl took the pink-haired girl into the room and waited for her to take off her pants and blouse, and then began to help her put on a beautiful kimono of a soft pink color with a golden belt. Exactly 5 minutes later, Sakura was standing at the exit. Soon Naruto came up in an orange kimono with flowers. "Let's go. I'll introduce you to everyone." The two girls began to walk around the entire clan block, and Naruto kept stopping to talk to acquaintances. Haruno tried to look as good as possible in front of all these strangers, but she was tired of maintaining her posture all the time. But Uzumaki showed herself perfectly, standing straight, holding her chin high, and speaking in a respectful and friendly tone. "Now you are more or less familiar with all the members of the Uzumaki clan living in Konoha," Naruto sighed, sitting down at the table in the dining room. The same girl who helped Sakura change immediately jumped up to her and poured tea into cups. "Yes, but why did you introduce me to everyone?" Haruno asked. "You," Naruto put her down. "What? You?" the pink-haired girl asked again. "From now on, Sakura, you will address me as you. For a whole month, you will become a servant in my house. You will clean the mansion during my absence, wash and iron clothes," Naruto said in an icy tone. "What? I have never cleaned the house. Only my room. And I am not going to be your servant, do you understand?" Sakura exclaimed, jumping up from her seat. Uzumaki remained unperturbed. "Sit down," she said firmly. Sakura obediently sat down. She didn't understand why she followed Naruto's orders without question. "You dared to insult me and now your life is completely at my disposal. I could have ordered you to die right away, as the rule says, but I decided to show mercy and now you must be my servant for a whole month." The Hokage signed the necessary contract. "Your parents agreed, and you won't be able to get out of it. I put a special seal on you. If you don't obey, you will be punished." "I refuse," the girl said arrogantly. "And no one asks you," Uzumaki growled, standing up. "Nico will show you and tell you everything. Tomorrow will begin your working day," and she came out. "Why do you serve someone like Naruto?" Sakura asked in the evening. "What do you mean? Like Naruto?" The girl frowned. "Naruko-sama is a very good and bright person. She helped me. 2 years ago, my father owed a large sum to one person and ran away, leaving me alone. I was evicted and was left on the street. I did not know what to do, but that day, Lady Naruko found me and helped me. I decided to thank her and began to serve her." Nico smiled. "What?" Sakura's eyes widened in surprise. "Yes. She was raised by great people, and she herself became a very good person. And all her actions pursue some goal." "And what goal do you think she is pursuing now?" asked Haruno. I want you to learn to look at the world soberly, answered the girl who appeared out of nowhere. Uzumaki. Sakura, you are in love with Sasuke and want him to reciprocate your feelings. But for over 8 years now, you have been trying to get his attention. Don't you think it's time to change tactics? Instead of screaming calm, instead of a burden a strong medic need, instead of annoying quick help. You saw the way Sasuke looked at you after you helped him after the meeting with Orochimaru? Sakura nodded. So strive to be useful. You have slightly warmed up the Uchiha's interest. Keep up the good work, and you will achieve what you want. After staying with me for a month, you will learn to respect the clan offspring. Sasuke is currently not only the last of the Uchiha, but also the head of the clan. And you, with your attitude towards the clans, are ruining his good impression, which appeared after Orochimaru's attack. In the future you will do most of the housework and become a good wife. I strive to make you better. Did I answer your question? Why? Yes, Sakura nodded, stunned. Then good luck in tomorrow, Uzumaki smiled, but suddenly became stern. And remember, don't do anything stupid. And she went to her room. Tell me, Naruto, Kurama called in his subconscious. Do you really want Sakura and Sasuke to be together? I don't care whether they will be together or not, the girl answered mentally. I strive for Hirono to stop being a burden and learn at least simple, but respect. And Uchiha is a good excuse for this. Chapter 26, Jiraiya? Naruto yawned and stretched. She was bored. No, that's not it. She was very bored. The first week of the month-long vacation, before the third stage, had just begun. There were no missions, all the participants were training. The girl didn't feel like doing it herself, so she sent the clones to hone their techniques. Yawning again, Uzumaki rose from the roof where she was lying. Stretching, thereby loosening up her stiff muscles, the girl jumped to the ground and went for a walk around the village. There was nothing else to do anyway. She might as well stop by the library. Naruto loved to read. Sometimes she could get so engrossed in reading that she forgot about absolutely everything in the world. And no training missions or Hashirama could distract her from this interesting activity. Sometimes she stayed up for several nights in a row, reading books. The girl mostly liked stories about magical creatures or about the adventures of shinobi. Unlike Sakura, she never read romance. She didn't like all sorts of snot. Entering the library, which, by the way, was located in Hashirama's stone face, like the shelter. The library was looked after by a young, lively guy. He was a simple civilian. He knew how to use chakra a little, but he didn't go into shinobi. He had an instinct for self-preservation. And it was too late. But Naruto liked him because the guy didn't despise her. He understood that the girl was made a vessel for the Biju, and not that she was the incarnation of the Kyuubi. Also, Roku, which was the name of the librarian, read most of the books in the library and could easily advise Uzumaki one of them, checking with her tastes. Having thrown open the door to the library, the girl called out to Roku and thrust into his hands the 5 books she had already read. Having put them on his desk, the guy began to write down that the books were returned on time, while the blonde was choosing new ones. In the end, she stopped at 2 books with dull covers. The titles and descriptions were promising. Having thrown the books on the table, Naruto began to wait for the guy to write everything down in the card. Having finished, he carefully put the books in a bag. Uzumaki deftly and habitually sealed them in a scroll and, having said goodbye, went in search of a comfortable place to read. In the end, this place turned out to be a thick branch on a tree. The girl climbed it and, having taken out a book, began to read. The plot captivated her so much that she did not even notice how she had been hanging on the branch until the evening. She was distracted from reading by an incomprehensible rustling and someone's giggles. Having put the book away, having previously marked the page on which she stopped with a piece of paper, Naruto jumped down. And then she found the one who distracted her. It turned out to be a white-haired man, dressed in light green pants and a kimono of the same color, over which was a red vest. The man was looking through a telescope. Frowning, Uzumaki remembered that there were women's baths here and this strange guy was most likely spying on the girls. Indignation overwhelmed the girl, and she slapped the white-haired man on the shoulder. He jumped in surprise and turned around. Naruto smiled at him with her most bloodthirsty smile, from which goosebumps ran down the man's body. "Hey," the girl said deliberately loudly. "Aren't you a bit old to spy on young girls?" "What?" the white-haired man hissed. "Quieter, please." "Quieter?" she exclaimed. "Not for anything in this world. Hey, girls! There's some old pervert spying on you." Loud squeals were heard from the other side of the bathhouse. The white-haired man grabbed his head and almost started tearing his hair out. "My research!" he hissed and wanted to run away somewhere, but Uzumaki was faster. She deftly twisted the man, giving him a knee in the solar plexus. "You know, I've seen you somewhere before," the girl pulled, dragging the white-haired man away from the bathhouse. "What's your name, pervert?" "I'm not a pervert." The man with strange stripes on his face was offended. "I am the great hermit from Mount Myaboku. I am one of the 3 great Sannin. I am the most. Can you make it shorter?" The girl sighed tiredly. "Preferably, without pathos." "Jiraiya," the man introduced himself. "By the way, maybe you should stop dragging me along the ground?" "No, that's not enough," Uzumaki snorted. "Stop." She stopped abruptly. "Jiraiya? My godfather?" the blue-eyed girl said in surprise. "Eh?" The man didn't understand. "I'm Uzumaki. Naruto. Daughter of Kushina and Minato. Namikaze." The girl introduced herself. "Naruto?" he whispered incredulously. "Is it really you?" I am, the girl smiled. "Come to my house. I need to talk to you about something." To say that Jiraiya was surprised that there was a small clan of red-haired people living on the outskirts of Konoha Uzumaki, that's to say nothing. The man was amazed and perplexed, how a 13-year-old girl managed to find them all and gather them together. The house where Naruto lived surprised Jiraiya. It was huge and spacious. In the house, except for the girl and the girl with pink hair, there was no one. And they, apparently, were here as servants. In a small shoe cabinet there were several pairs of men. "Kakashi Hatake lives with me. He is my father's student. His friend Guy is my taijutsu teacher in one person. And my adopted brother is Hashi," answered Naruto, noticing the thoughtful look of the Sannin. "Sakura, pour us some tea. And Kami forbid you put a sleeping pill or a laxative in it. This time I will not forgive you." The fact is that in the morning Sakura put a laxative in Guy's tea. While he was sitting on the white friend, Uzumaki scolded Haruno for this. And the girl only blinked her eyes, asking for forgiveness and muttering something about confusing sugar with a laxative. Sugar with a laxative. And the second was in the first aid kit, and the first was in the buffet. "Now tell me, Jiraiya," Naruto said sharply when they were drinking tea. "Why did you leave me in Konoha, and you ran off God knows where?" "I had to," the Toad Sannin answered seriously. "The elders insisted that I leave Konoha. They set me up a couple of times, because of which I was almost called a missing nin. Fortunately, Hiruzen-sensei arrived in time, and in the end I had to leave the leaf." "I see," Uzumaki drawled, biting her lip. "But you owe me." "Why is that?" Jiraiya was indignant. "You were absent for 13 years. And now you are obliged to teach me something new." "But," the Sannin tried to object. "And this is not up for discussion." To be more convincing, the girl turned the frying pan in her hands, which she had found God knows where. "Hi!" The white-haired man swallowed. She looked too much like Kushina now. Chapter 27 Summoning Technique. For the residents of the mansion, which included Jiraiya, very quickly the week flew by. At first, the Sannin settled some business with the Hokage, the elders and Danzo. He settled it loudly. Destructively. But the result was the same. Jiraiya remains in Konoha for a month and will train Naruto all this time. The day before the final battles, he will have to leave the Hidden Leaf. Danzo insisted on this. Also, Hashirama returned from a mission. Seeing the new resident of the mansion, he was delighted and immediately rushed to get acquainted with him. During the acquaintance, Senju jumped around Jiraiya and examined the man from different sides. After these simple manipulations, he clapped his hands, laughing joyfully. Childhood in the ass, Naruto muttered then, and Kakashi and Guy mentally agreed with her. But Hashirama achieved the effect, albeit not quite the one he wanted. At the sight of the first Hokage jumping around him like a mountain goat, Jiraiya, clutching his heart, fainted. And where did his shinobi endurance go? Soon the white-haired one was pumped out and brought to his senses. Naruto kindly told her godfather about what Shodai was doing in her house, not forgetting to put a special seal. All this time Kakashi left early in the morning and returned late at night. As it turned out, he was training Sasuke Chidori. Quite a powerful and useful technique. Uchiha will need it in the fight with Gaara. And when Hitaki saw his idol in the house in the person of Jiraiya, he generally left Uchiha alone for a couple of days, discussing the plot of these strange erotic books with the Sannin. Might Guy visited Lee. One day, he occupied the stove in the house for the whole day, preparing some disgusting pills. With a happy smile on his face, he went to feed them to Roku. And when he returned, he again occupied the entire kitchen. The rest of the Uzumaki clan lived their usual lives. Aki continued to come to the park with Sakura, bringing Fyodo with her. Jiro, Takumi, Ichiro and Koko became shinobi. They were distributed among different teams, as fifth members and masters of Fuinjutsu. Old Lady Suin often held tea parties in a tea house located near the center of Konoha. The rest of the Uzumaki helped Naruto build houses for the new clan members, of whom, by the way, there were already 13. And Zabuza and Haku began to go on missions more often. We're going to training. It was with these words that Jiraiya's Tuesday morning began. He was pushed, taking away the most valuable thing, a warm blanket and a pillow. As a result, the white-haired man had to get up and go to breakfast, after which he was immediately dragged to the training ground. To begin with, the man assessed the Uzumaki's skills. It must be said, Hashirama tried his best. Naruto was an excellent Doton and Suiton user, and she had 3 or 4 Hon Mokuton techniques in reserve. Right-ton actively resisted, refusing to obey Naruto. However, sometimes he still decided to condescend to a mere mortal and obey her for a while. The Toad Hermit immediately offered Naruto to master the summoning technique. The girl happily agreed. She had dreamed of having a pet for so long. And then bam! And soon she would have toads. In the end, Uzumaki, with a wide smile on her face, generously poured her own blood over the scroll with names. After that, Jiraiya began actively teaching Naruto to summon toads, showing her several times how to do it. As a result, the poor girl almost broke all her fingers. Moreover, it was easier to use the water dragon technique, because not so many fingers changed in the seals, unlike this summoning technique. In the end, the girl summoned a toad, who introduced himself as Gamakichi. He turned out to be an interesting person, though not very mature. Uzumaki chatted with him all evening, trying to find out as much as possible about her new friend. She asked Gamakichi about everything, from his favorite habits to his food preferences. "You're doing well," said Jiraiya. "But that's not enough." "What are you talking about?" asked Naruto, chewing a chocolate candy. A week had passed, and all this time Uzumaki had been training in the summoning technique. She had already met almost all the toads from Myobokuzen. It was difficult to remember their names, but the girl was from the Uzumaki clan, and they have enormous stubbornness. You can only summon small toads. However, they won't be of much help in battle. Therefore, you must learn to summon huge toads. To do this, put more chakra into the technique. Okay, Naruto pulled and folded several seals. Summoning technique. A small puff of smoke appeared, from which Fusuma jumped out a toad the size of Jiraiya with a reddish-yellow coloring. The Sannin shook his head and made the girl use the summoning technique again. Time after time, small toads were summoned slightly shorter than the white-haired one. In order for you to summon someone huge, you need mortal danger, Jiraiya summed up. Mortal danger? Uzumaki asked again, looking at her godfather in surprise. Yes. So I ask you to forgive me in advance, With these words, he knocked out Naruto. She woke up already on the slope of some gorge. Carefully looking down, she saw sharp spikes and a river flowing somewhere far away. Turning around, she saw Jiraiya. The girl was about to start complaining, but the man pushed her off the cliff. Naruto's eyes widened in fear. Use the summoning technique, Jiraiya shouted from above. Summoning technique. Uzumaki folded the seals and the letters passed through the air. There was a loud bang and Uzumaki felt that she was landing on something elastic and large. Turning her head, she saw that she was standing on a huge toad in a blue vest and a pipe in his mouth. Jiraiya? How dare you summon me? The toad said angrily. I am not a perverted hermit. She was offended by the girls, sitting on the animal's head. I am Uzumaki Naruto. And I summoned you. What kind of brat? Don't make me laugh. Where is that brat Jiraiya? I summoned you, you stupid animal! The girl exclaimed. What? How dare you call me that, little one? The toad growled. I am the great Gamabunta of Mount Myobokuzan. And I am Haim of the Uzumaki clan and the daughter of the fourth Hokage Minato. Namikaze! The blonde answered him in the same proud tone. What? Minato's daughter? Don't make me angry. A weakling like you can't be my old friend's daughter. Well, I can. You can't. I can. The blue-eyed girl resisted. You've had enough of me. With these words, Gamabunta abruptly jumped out of the gorge. Naruto, who hadn't expected this, barely managed to cling to the toad. The amphibian began to jump on the ground, creating light earthquakes. Uzumaki somehow held on to the toad's head with the help of chakra. If you can stay on me until the evening, then I will recognize you. I agree. The girls screamed in surprise when Gamabunta abruptly jumped. By evening, Naruto was exhausted and was holding on to the toad with her last strength. All this time Gamabunta was jumping, skipping, diving into the water, running, shaking his head, but all to no avail. Uzumaki held on to him, trying not to fall. She succeeded. Gamabunta admitted that the girl was inhumanly persistent. See? I did it! She whispered when Toad stopped, and the next second, Uzumaki was swallowed by darkness. Chapter 28 Naruto vs. Neji. The huge arena was crowded with people, breaking through to their places. The month given to the genin to recover and increase their strength flew by in an instant. Each genin who had passed to the third stage trained in his own way. Some were practicing new techniques, some were lounging around, being confident in themselves, and some were practicing new taijutsu techniques. 7 people stood in the middle of the field where the battles would soon take place. They were waiting for the competition to begin, but not everyone had come. Only one participant was missing, who was supposed to fight first. Uchiha Sasuke, Gaara's sparring partner, was absent. We decided to start the fights without Uchiha Sasuke. If he doesn't show up for his fight, we'll declare him the loser, Genma said. Shirani Genma was an examiner for the third Chunin stage. Shuriken, because Hate Gecko disappeared. However, the guys were told that he was being treated in the hospital. Everyone believed him. Gecko coughed too much during their first meeting. So, first fight, Hyuga Neji vs. Uzumaki. Iriko, the examiner announced. I ask everyone else to go to the stands. The genin slowly dispersed across the stands, leaving 3 people on the battlefield. Neji and Naruto took fighting stances, and Shirani raised his right hand. Looking at his opponents, he gave the signal to begin the fight. Neji instantly activated his Byakugan, and Naruto pounced on him, entering into close combat. She wanted to kick him with a roundhouse kick, but he intercepted her and threw the girl up. She did not lose her head and, turning in the air to face her opponent, made a seal. Doton. Stone bullets. Several stone bullets flew out of the girl's mouth. Hyuga jumped to the side, trying to avoid them. A small hole appeared in the place where he had been standing a second ago. A new bullet made him jump back again. And again. And again. Landing on her feet, the girl smirked, lifting her leg up and bringing it down sharply. Sway Tun. Water God's sword. She concentrated her chakra and a powerful stream of water appeared from under her foot, which rapidly increased in size, as if appearing directly from the ground, catching up with Niji at an enormous speed. He barely managed to delay it at the last second, putting his right hand up. 8 strikes of heaven! A huge amount of chakra came out of his hand, which was directed at Uzumaki. She flew to the wall, breaking it with her back. When the dust settled, everyone was presented with a panting girl who was stretching her shoulder. Stone-crushing strike of 8 sides, Niji said, appearing right in front of Uzumaki. Visible blue chakra appeared from his hand, which again pressed the girl to the wall. With a cry of surprise, Uzumaki broke the wall with her back again, causing several wounds on Naruto and tearing her clothes. That bastard! The girl hissed, using the substitution technique. Sway-tun! Water dragon! A huge column of water appeared from under the ground, which turned into a huge dragon. Roaring, the monster rushed at Niji, covering him with a wave of water. The Hyuga was pressed to the ground, collapsing the soil under him. Shadow cloning! Uzumaki folded her fingers into a cross. 5 exact copies of herself appeared next to her. 3 of them rushed towards the guy, who was trying to get out from under the water dragon, and surrounded him from behind and to the left. The other 2 stopped on the right, and Naruto remained standing in front. In 1 second, all the water disappeared. The clones and the original folded 5 identical seals: tiger, dog, horse, dragon, pig. Fuinjutsu. Mass destruction of chakra. Niji was surrounded by a purple sphere. Screaming, Hyuga fell to his knees, and then to his stomach. All his chakra began to be sucked out at an incredible speed. The strength left the body of the young genin. Grabbing the sand with his hands, he rose to his knees. And then, trembling with his whole body, he stood up on his feet. I already lost to you once. I'm not going to do it again, the genin grinned. Kaiten! A whirlwind of chakra appeared around him, which destroyed Uzumaki's barrier. The clones immediately dispersed with a characteristic clap, and the girl herself jumped to the side, saving herself from Kaiten. Niji abruptly rushed at Uzumaki. Naruto blocked his blow, crossing her arms above her head, and then turned and kicked Hyuga in the side. He dodged the attack in time and got into a fighting stance. 64 strikes of heaven! Niji said the name of the technique and began to hit the tank with 2 fingers. 2 strikes. 4 strikes. 8 strikes. 16 strikes. 32 strikes. 64 strikes of heaven! Uzumaki flew to the side, plowing the ground with her body. Spitting out blood, she sat up. You're repeating yourself, Hyuga, the girl grinned, releasing chakra kurama. Sway-tun! Heavenly cry! 1,000 saban from the water flew out of her mouth. Niji took out a kunai and began to fight them off, but there were too many of them and they still pinned him to the ground. Chakra absorption. A bluish glow appeared around Uzumaki's right hand and she rushed to Niji, putting her hand to his neck, sucking out chakra. Hyuga's eyes darted in different directions and a second later the guy passed out. Done, said Naruto, sighing. Uzumaki defeated. Naruto! Genma announced. The stands immediately exploded with applause and loud joyful shouts towards the girl. The medics carried Niji to the hospital, and Haim went up to the stands, accepting congratulations from Shikamaru. Next fight, Aburame Shino vs Sabaku no Kankuro. Kankuro frowned and began to think about something. Shino was about to jump off, when suddenly the guy's loud voice made him stay put. Aburame looked at his opponent in surprise. I surrender, the puppeteer said. Are you sure of your decision? Shirani frowned. Yes, Sabaku no nodded. Then I declare Aburame the winner of the second fight. Shino. Third fight, Shikamaru Nara vs Sabaku no Temari. Both genin jumped into the arena. At the same time, the girl looked at her brother with some displeasure. He only spread his arms and barely noticeably nodded towards the Kage box, where the Hokage and Kazekage were. The blonde shook her head and jumped into the arena. Uzumaki noticed their gestures and frowned. For some reason, she didn't like it, and her sixth sense was simply screaming that something terrible was about to happen.